Armando has Suringan biology and medicine videos. Please make sure to subscribe, join the forum and group for the latest videos. Please visit Facebook Armando Suringan. Let's talk about the hormonal regulation of the male reproductive system. So the male, not the female. So hormones are part of the endocrine system. There are many hormones that act on the reproductive system that stimulate, for example, gamete production, sex drive, etc. We begin the journey of the male reproductive hormones in the brain. Here we are looking at part of the diencephalon of the brain. Here is the hypothalamus, and here we have the pituitary glands, consisting of the anterior and posterior pituitaries. We are focusing on the anterior pituitary because it is the anterior pituitary which secretes hormones that function in the reproductive system. The anterior pituitary has blood vessels connecting the hypothalamus, the anterior pituitary, and the rest of the body. What happens is that the hypothalamus will secrete a gonadotropin-releasing hormone, or GnRH. This will travel to the anterior pituitary via the blood vessel, the port of blood, and which then, the gonadotropin-releasing hormone will then stimulate the anterior pituitary to secrete two important hormones. These are the LH, or luteinizing hormone, and FSH, follicle-stimulating hormone. So two important hormones secreted by the anterior pituitary. These two hormones, LH and FSH, have separate functions. They will, however, travel to the male testes via the bloodstreams. So here we have the male testes, the seminiferous tubules, which then forms a long tube, essentially, which will connect to the urethra, penis. Anyways, the LH and FSH that were secreted by the anterior pituitary will travel to the testes here via the blood vessel. Let us zoom into the testes, this section here, known as the seminiferous tubules. Before I continue on, I do recommend watching the male reproductive system overview, the video I made, if you are confused about the anatomy I'm using here. So the section we just zoomed into is the seminiferous tubule. It is the tubule. But surrounding the seminiferous tubule, we have the interstitial space where capillaries are found, blood vessels are found. And this region here we'll just say is the seminiferous tubule. Now LH and FSH, luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, will enter the interstitial space in between the seminiferous tubule. Let's see what else we find in this area. Well, within the interstitial space, there are many cells known as Leydig cells or interstitial cells because they're found in the interstitial space. And within the seminiferous tubules, we find Sertoli cells or Nurse cells. And it is within the seminiferous tubule region where we find also spermatogonia. Spermatogonia is a male germ cell that eventually becomes sperm as we know it. But it can't do that yet without the help of the surrounding cells, so the Sertoli cells and the Leydig cells. Let us focus on luteinizing hormone first, LH. So luteinizing hormone will enter the interstitial space and it will target the Leydig cells, which will cause the Leydig cells to secrete testosterone. So here, Leydig cells secrete the hormone testosterone. Testosterone is a male hormone. It is the most important androgen. It does a lot of things, this hormone. First, it can target and stimulate the Sertoli cells, which we will talk about later. And testosterone has many other effects in the body. So let's look at some of the peripheral effects of testosterone. Firstly, testosterone helps men maintain libido, so sexual function, sexual drive. Testosterone also stimulates bone growth and muscle growth. Testosterone also helps maintain male secondary characteristics, such as having a beard and a deep voice. Finally, testosterone is important in the maintenance of accessory glands and organs of the male reproductive system, so the prostate, for example. Therefore, testosterone is definitely important for men. Of course, producing too much testosterone is not good, and so there is a negative feedback occurring when there's high levels of testosterone. So when testosterone levels or dihydroxytestosterone levels are high, this will send a negative feedback to the anterior pituitary to inhibit the release of luteinizing hormone, LH. Because remember, LH was the one that stimulated testosterone secretion in the first place. So high testosterone levels will inhibit the release of luteinizing hormone, which should decrease the secretion of testosterone by the Leydig cells. Now going back, remember how I told you that testosterone also affects Sertoli cells as well within the seminiferous tubules? Well, it turns out that follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, also targets the Sertoli cells. So follicle-stimulating hormone targets Sertoli cells, stimulating ABP release by the Sertoli cells. So what is ABP? Well, first, in order for Sertoli cells to secrete ABP, which means androgen-binding protein, it needs both follicle-stimulating hormone stimulation as well as testosterone being present. So what does androgen-binding protein, ABP, do? Well, interestingly enough, it basically stimulates and promotes the synthesis of spermatozoa, sperm, which will end up in the lumen of the seminiferous tubule. So androgen-binding protein, ABP, promotes sperm growth, which is spermatogenesis and spermiogenesis. So just to summarize, ABP, androgen-binding protein, will bind to androgen testosterone within the seminiferous tubule, which in turn will stimulate sperm production, basically. I hope this makes sense. So again, two things are required for sperm production: ABP and testosterone. Now the Sertoli cells also secrete a hormone called inhibin. Inhibin, as the name suggests, inhibits something, and it does. It acts as a negative feedback signal to the anterior pituitary and hypothalamus area. Inhibin will essentially decrease pituitary production of follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH. This is to control and regulate sperm production, because we don't want too much sperm, I guess. I hope you enjoyed this video on the regulation of the male hormones and the effects the hormones have on the male reproductive system. Thanks.